We might get a shootout, and whoever has the ball last with the Southeastern Louisiana and Samford game may be able to get the win because both defenses are struggling a little bit, but offensively they're very similar. But if I had to put money down, I'd put money.
Welcome to the official podcast of FCS Fans Nation with your hosts Kyler Neal, Matthew Frazee, and Jamie Williams.
FCS Fans Nation, we hope you had a great Thanksgiving with family and friends. We are thankful that the FCS playoffs were so entertaining to start with some amazing first-round matchups. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the FCS Fans Nation podcast. Your main crew is coming through your airways tonight. Jamie Williams, Kyler Neal, Matthew Frazee, ready to react to a fun round one and looking forward to possibly some upsets coming up here in round two. We will see. We're into the Sweet 16, ladies and gentlemen. And Mr. Neal, I just got to ask you as excited as NCAA basketball when it gets to this point, or how we feeling as the bracket is moving on?
It's a weird season. So I don't know. I'm not as excited this season as normal NCAA basketball, but it is fun watching other teams, fail, win, getting shootouts. I'm just here for a good time.
Kyler's just here for a good time. He has his Eastern Washington gear repped in the background if you're watching on YouTube. We also have the beautiful red, white, and black colors of Gardner Webb as our YouTube background, as our banners this evening. If you guys are watching us on the YouTube channel, main reason we're doing that is because Gardner Webb, in fact, is the only team in round one, stat from Mr. Craig Haley, that won on the road this weekend. So kudos to the running Bulldogs. They were able to run on the road and get a victory, which was pretty exciting. Mr. Williams, before we kick into the Big Seven, because we've got some great slate of questions, how are you feeling today? Are you feeling sunny? Are you feeling coastal? How's a Dukes fan feeling today?
I'm feeling pretty darn good. We'll just drop right into the Frisco bucket. I'm not even going to pretend like I'm not going to talk about it. 8-3 in our first FBS season. Coastal came in yesterday. Yes, they didn't have Grayson McCall, but they had everybody else and their 23 ranking in the AP poll, and we just beat them by 40. Yeah, 4-0. Best team in the East of the Sun Belt, but we don't get to play in the conference championship game because rules. So asterisk to whoever wins it.
The beasts of the East. Well done by your Dukes. We miss you at the FCS level, but tons of success heading your guys' way, and it's always fun to see how FCS teams are competing at that next level. All right, boys, it's time to get into things. I'm excited for it. The fans have dropped some amazing questions. It's a great slate. So let's kick things right off. Let's go into the first playoff, Big Seven.
The top 7 FCS topics of the week. This is the Big Seven.
Our fans are antsy about round two, Jamie and Kyler, because we start off with two questions here, kind of reacting to last week's, and then we kick right into, hey, what's going to happen in round two? What are the impacts? So we're going to start with this question here from Mr. Joe Gass. Awesome Delaware fan. Congratulations to his Fighting Blue Hens. And let's kick off this one, Jamie. Joe asked, do you think if a school won on Saturday, it justifies their selection by the committee? So this one's interesting because I think a lot of people were thrown off by the committee's selections this year, at least within the seeding realm. People felt pretty straightforward in terms of the at-larges. But do you feel like the win is really the justification for the committee, or are we looking at other factors with this?
No, I think, it's a hindsight 2020. But if you look at the last two teams, presumably in the field, Delaware and Montana won their games. Yes, they both had home games, but they both won. Weber looked like a team that was pissed off that they didn't get a seed, and then they looked like a team that didn't deserve a seed. They hung on to win. So I think that's just the way it goes. I think the committee, they did overall. They got probably 22 or 23 of the right 24 teams. You can always argue over their last couple. They got the 8 teams seeded correctly. We know we all Didn't completely agree with the slotting of each of those seeds, but they did the best they thought they could do, and I don't think it was awful. Like I said, there's things I would change, but just because I thought Montana shouldn't have been in and Chattanooga should have been, just because Montana won doesn't mean that I still don't think Chattanooga should have been in over them, because I do. And, Chattanooga and Southeast Missouri probably still would have been a matchup regionally, and who knows how that would have shaken out. But Montana got a solid comeback, and they were able to win that game, and, good for them. But, I don't think you can go hindsight 2020 and say, oh, see, we told you were wrong, because they can look at all the other ones and say, well, yeah, well, look how we were right. And if we get 1 through 8 that win this week, guess what people are going to say? Oh, yeah, they were right. So, I have no major issue other than I thought, Montana should have been in and Chattanooga should have. And just because Montana won doesn't change that thought process.
Yeah, I think the at-larges are really where the committee I think they butchered the seeding I'm not going to go back down that line. We talked about it on the mock playoff special and the selection show the last week. I think their seeding is way off from where the resumes were. But thinking at the at-larges, really, when you look at the scores, and we got them pulled up here on YouTube, like Montana getting a 10-point win, Idaho and Southeastern Louisiana was a close 3-point game. You had 2 blowouts in the bottom right corner, but just remember, 2 of those are at-larges, so you could question the Elon. But Davidson is an auto bid, right? So Davidson is going to get in because they won their conference, and they got destroyed by an at-large Richmond, who clearly shows they deserve to be in the field. Weber State, North Dakota, that's a great matchup. It wasn't the first half, but it ended up being, a pretty close game at the end. Eastern Kentucky, Gardner Webb, you've got an auto bid there, and the auto bid won. And Eastern Kentucky,
they were an auto bid too.
Eastern Kentucky's auto bid as well. Thank you, Kyler. I mean, you got that matchup, even 52-41 is pretty great. New Hampshire and Fordham, everyone questioned they were pounding the table for Fordham, but they thought if you were going to have a last in, last out, it might be them. And New Hampshire Fordham was a 10-point game. And Delaware blows out St. Francis. St. Francis is an auto bid, and Delaware gets selected. So overall, I kind of think that this first round justified the at-larges really, really well. I think the committee made some pretty good justifications. And ultimately, Kyler, right, wasn't there only 1 or 2 that people really kind of questioned? Or I think it was done well.
It was like Fordham, Montana, Delaware. And then some people even said Idaho were kind of the ones where you're like, no, do they deserve to get in or not? Now, for this question, I'm going to say no. Just because you win doesn't justify it. I think if you were a team and you beat an at-large, you're an at-large and you beat another at-large, or a team that was no matter what going to get an at-large, like SEMO, for instance. At 9-2, even if we had the coin flip, all of us were 100% saying SEMO would have been in no matter what. Right? And it would have taken away another at-large from another team. Montana beats that team that was going to be an at-large no matter what. They're justified. Now, if you're playing a St. Francis, a Davidson, some of these other teams where, look at the historic data. They are getting blown out in the playoffs every single year, pretty much on average. NEC, a Pioneer, a Patriot League doesn't really do much in the playoffs. So it just depends. If you're blowing out one of the easiest conference champs, I don't think it proves you still deserve an at-large, right? I'm not saying Delaware doesn't deserve one. That's not what I'm saying here. But I'm saying, depending on the matchup, it doesn't prove anything. It doesn't justify anything. But again, if you do beat another at-large who is going to get an at-large no matter what, that does probably justify you being in the field. Because again, SEMO was always going to be in the field at 9-2, no matter what anyone says, even if who was it? UT Martin won the coin flip.
Yep.
So that's kind of where I have like a difference of an opinion, if that makes sense. It really just depends on your matchup. If you're playing one of the easy champions, literally there's 50 teams that could probably beat them, 35 that could probably blow them out. So,
Yeah, that's all factual. I feel like when I looked at the first round, and we're going to dive into round 2 here pretty quickly. When I looked at the first round, I thought the matchups played out pretty well, and it wasn't just like blowout city. So you had 2 games that kind of went off the edge a little bit. Some games that got closer near the end and were blowouts in the first half. But overall, I thought the first round of games did pretty well. So I think the committee did a good job from that standpoint.
And I picked 23 of the 24 teams, so I'm not disagreeing with anything that the committee had. I put Chattanooga in over Delaware myself just because of Delaware's last, 6 weeks. It was pretty bad. But at the end of the day, when it came out with Delaware, I was like, all right, they do have an FBS win. They do have a ranked win. It makes sense why they were above Chattanooga in kind of the final decision. So, I mean, it's nothing to throw your hat at there or whatever. But yeah, I mean, I think Montana proved they deserve to be in no matter what anyone else says.
Yeah, absolutely. Now they're heading to Fargo, and only when Montana comes to town that's a big name, So I'm rocking the Bison gear tonight. I haven't done it all season, I don't think. So, it's playoff time against the Grizz. Why not pull it out?
We all know that playoff Matt's different than regular season Matt. We love and forgive you for it anyway.
Yep, just follow me at Matthew Frazee on Twitter if you want to see the Bison Matt come out every now and then.
It's coming.
Yep, here it comes. All right, guys, we'll move into Jason. I'm sorry, I got the name wrong here. Jason Plotkin asked this question, so I'll edit my caption here on the bottom. Jason Plotkin wants to know, do we think Idaho's Eck coached himself out of a win against Southeastern Louisiana? And based on the result in Hammond, America, any thoughts on what the Lions' biggest challenge will be in the round of 16? So this is kind of a two-part question, and I'm super intrigued because Jamie and I are messaging about this a little bit. In terms of that Samford and Southeastern Louisiana matchup coming up. We don't want to give any game predictions because we'll predict at the end of the podcast. But let's start with that actual matchup that happened down there in Hammond. Kyler, what was your takeaway from a crazy Big Sky team that almost pulled off a upset, you could say?
That was a fun game. Like, as just someone who's not a fan of either, and I didn't really care who won because I like some Idaho fans. I like, Southeastern Louisiana, and I root against the Big Sky, so it is fun. But what a fun game. I mean, yeah, now I don't think you put any blame on Eck. He's already a few years ahead of schedule from turning that dumpster fire into a playoff caliber team with none of his players yet, right? None of these are his players, and he's already bringing them in from a dumpster fire to a playoff team, and they were in the game. Here's the only thing what I'm probably going to blame it on is Giovanni McCoy is a phenomenal quarterback. He's a freshman, right? He made a few freshman mistakes that ultimately cost them the game. I mean, I do think that is the biggest issue right now. But again, he also kept Idaho in the game with some of his playmaking. But as a freshman, you are going to make some mistakes, especially you've never been in the playoffs. I mean, you killed it this year. You're facing adversity, but 2 of those interceptions were not smart decisions. They weren't good throws. So, I mean, that's ultimately what I believe won the game for SLU. But yeah, it's not an Eck thing. Eck thing did a fantastic job. He wasn't outcoached. Just the other team made a few better plays, in my opinion, which give credit to where credit's due. SLU, I thought, was going to be down quite a bit after losing, Cole Kelly, but they've been building this program for a few years, and it seems like every year they are actually getting better. They're getting, better recruits. They're building a name brand for themselves, and Matt's looking at something naughty. But
hey, I can't control the NCAA K Jeweler ads or whatever's popping up here.
Secret Resorts.
The scores. Secret Resorts, yeah. I'll keep that out of there. So on YouTube, the copyright doesn't get us. But
no, this was such a fun game though. And if anyone missed it, go back on ESPN Plus and watch this, even like without commercials, or do something, because this was such a fun game to watch. I mean, you thought for a little bit Idaho had it in the bag, then all of a sudden SLU came back and they were up by 2. And you're like, oh, it's game over. Idaho doesn't even have a chance. And then they come back, they tie it. They're getting a kick, which the kicker was iced after he made the field goal. And then he comes and slips on the last kick. Yeah, it was an insane game. It was a very fun playoff game, but it's just a few rookie mistakes.
Well, it was a fun game to watch. It was one of the most fun ones of the weekend. I really want to get into the next part of that question, though, with Southeastern Louisiana's next challenge as they're going to Samford, because it's an interesting style matchup. So I'm intrigued to hear what Jamie has to say about that one. I just want to point out, if you're watching on YouTube, this is how I had the screen. Look at this. How creepy is that if you just left it like right there? Just eyeballs staring you down. We'll bounce out of that and look forward to the next matchup of Samford and Southeastern Louisiana. Jamie, tell me about this matchup for Mr. Plotkin, because this is the reason we're going to focus in on this one specifically is twofold. I think the matchup's intriguing. Jason asked the question, and I guess a third reason is this is the one where people are probably a little bit more unsure of what these teams are bringing to the table. So what do you got here, man?
Yeah, I mean, both of these teams definitely like to sling the rock. But I will say about this year's Southeastern Louisiana team is a different and, in my opinion, better team than last year's team. And I know last year's team had Cole Kelly, but that was a very one-dimensional team. But this year they've got a running game to go along with it. They've got Carlos Washington, who was a transfer, if I'm thinking correctly, he was at New Hampshire with Dylan Lobb, and they were two-headed backfield. He transferred down. He was phenomenal last night. And the quarterback can run the ball just like Cole Kelly could. But they play, and doesn't show, they play a little bit better defense. And I know they gave up 42, but they did play a little bit better defense than last year overall. So to me, it's a more well-rounded Southeastern Louisiana team than the one that came up to Harrisonburg last year and did nothing. So it's going to be interesting to see which secondary can stand up. And it was kind of the same thing as last night. Is which secondary could stand up, and it was Southeastern's. I mean, that pick six was maybe the difference in the game, because that put them up by 2 scores, and Idaho did battle back, and they got the defensive stop they needed, and they put themselves in position to win the football game until, unfortunately, the kicker slipped. By the way, Eck didn't make the kicker slip, and Eck didn't throw the pick six. So I think you can tell I agree with Kyler on that. And then from the Samford side, will Michael Harris be ready? I hope so, because if he's not ready, and I know the backup came in and got the win against Mercer, but if Harris isn't there for the full game, I don't think Samford can hang with Southeastern. So, but like we said, we'll predict later, and I'm going to predict as though Harris is going to be there and ready to go with the extra week of prep. But this is going to be one of those intriguing matchups of what secondary can stand up, who can create a late turnover, who can create, more of a run game, because Samford does have a good running back in Jay Stanton. Don't forget about him. Very good running back. So this is a very intriguing matchup in this week's group of games. And I'm kind of glad this is the one that was set up regionally. It makes the most sense as well, based off of, where the teams are located. So, yeah, we're going to have a little treat there. So I think if you only pick 2 games to watch, this should be one of the 2. Because I know everybody can't sit and watch all 8 games, but if you want to pick, a couple, make sure this is one of them.
Yeah, Bulldogs and Lions is going to be intriguing. We'll do a little statistics here for you. A few stats. When you look at the total offense, Samford is 20th in the nation in the FCS, and Southeastern Louisiana 21st. So they are literally right next to each other. And then you get on the total defensive side of the house. Last year, you would have definitely thought that Southeastern Louisiana would have been the victim of the much worse defense, of course. Southeastern Louisiana is 62nd in defense. I'm not saying that's a championship caliber level, but that's way higher than I think most people would think in terms of that high-flying, quick offense. And what's really intriguing is Samford's offense or defense is ranked 101st. So they give up about 5.4 yards a play, 434 yards a game. So I'm not saying that's a complete bender break. Samford's going to be the home team. They're coming off a bye. Of course, Jamie mentioned the injuries. But that's intriguing to me to think like, wow, is this team that we just thought was the Cole Kelly offensive show maybe just a little bit more balanced? It'll be interesting to see. I don't want to go much further into this question, not to cut you off, Kyler, but you will get a chance, I'm going to guess here in this next question, to talk about it. Because we will be predicting these games, and so I don't want to give anything away. Zachary Carlton, hey, sometimes fans just are like, I'm going to ask 5 or 6 questions, and I'll see what they answer, what they don't on this podcast. Well, Zachary Carlton, when you ask 6 questions that are awesome, they're all going in. So everybody better get ready to hear Zachary Carlton's name said a bunch. And Mr. Carlton said, all right, 6 of 8 matchups yesterday ended with a combined point total of 58 or higher. 58, 67, 73, 87, 93, and 94 combined points. Great research, Mr. Carlton. Which second-round matchup has the best high point potential, and which one has the greatest potential for a defensive struggle? Ooh, this is a great question. Okay, Kyler, looking into round 2 now.
Yeah.
Which one is the high points? You could say Samford, Southeastern Louisiana, but if beyond that one, what else are we looking at for some high point shootouts?
For the other high points ones, I mean, honestly, Montana State, Weber State, right? We already saw what they were doing and the last time they played. Now, these are statistically in the past, two of the stronger defenses in the past. This year, it's been kind of wishy-washy. Montana State's defense isn't that spectacular. They were against Montana, but I mean, Weber State, we've seen what Montana State can do against pretty much anyone this year running the ball, and they're finally healthy. Weber State's probably going to give up a good amount of yards on the ground. And then Weber State was able to kind of capitalize and throw the ball down the field against Montana State, run a little bit. So, I mean, I think this one actually has a really good shot to be a pretty high-scoring game. Also, I would say look at potentially the Sac State-Richmond game, right? Is Sac State going to be able to stop Reese? Is, Richmond going to be able to stop the rushing attack from Sac State, who kind of just wears you down in the second half? I don't know. I think these are going to be two potential shootout caliber games outside of the one we just talked about. I think that definitely has the best odds. But you asked for a few more. I think those two are going to have some high-scoring games.
Those ones are going to be a lot of fun. Jamie, what do you think for like a defensive struggle? So offensively, we think Montana State, we think Weber, definitely think Samford and Southeastern Louisiana are going to sling the ball around a little bit. Which one do you actually think could be your old school, line them up in the defensive line versus O-line? What are we going to see for some slobber knocker football?
I think this one's honestly fairly easy because you've got the number 3 defense going against the number 4 defense, and it's Delaware at South Dakota State. And, it could turn into a one-sided game for South Dakota State for sure. But Delaware's defense can and will keep them in this football game. So South Dakota State fans, do not get out on your high horse and think that you're just going to run away and win this game 37-7. Yeah, you might, but I don't think so. And it's going to be a fight. Defensively, both teams are very good. Very, very good. Let's see. I've got some numbers up here. Yeah, Delaware is number 2 against the pass, but they are number 49 against the rush. So it's a little bit vulnerable there. Whereas South Dakota State's number 1 against the rush and 13 against the pass. So very, very strong defenses on both sides. Again, not going to give any predictions, but I do feel like this is going to be your lowest scoring game of the day. And then, of course, Montana, North Dakota State is going to be low scoring as well, at least towards the end. I know Montana's game had, 58 points yesterday. Couple of them on special teams. So those would be the two that I would point to if you like defensive football. And if you want boring football, New Hampshire Holy Cross.
Yeah. I'll watch highlights. I'm not watching that game.
Well, we'll definitely know what the score will be from one of us here at the end, and you guys can give a little more intrigue into why. Okay, this question is great. We're moving into another Zachary Carlton question. Which first-round underdog has the best shot for an upset between Southeastern Louisiana, Gardner-Webb, or New Hampshire? Okay, so Southeastern Louisiana is going to play Samford. Gardner-Webb is heading to play William and Mary, and New Hampshire is heading to Holy Cross. I feel like there's supposed to be an easy answer here, or maybe there's not. Kyler, where does your heart tell you? Think about those 3 matchups and which one has the best shot for an upset between those 3.
Man, I think 2 of them have a really good shot. I think one of them has almost no shot. So let me say the one that has no shot, right? I sorry, Gardner-Webb, I don't think you're getting past William and Mary. Just don't think so. But New Hampshire Holy Cross, I mean, we just saw what New Hampshire did to the team that Holy Cross struggled against, right? Patriot League team. And then also we just been talking it up that we might get a shootout, and whoever has the ball last with the Southeastern Louisiana and Samford game may be able to get the win because both defenses are struggling a little bit, but offensively they're very similar. But if I had to put money down, I'd put money on New Hampshire over Holy Cross.
New Hampshire Holy Cross. Okay. And that is, and in quotations, Mr. Carlton put underdog. So he's aware of a few things. I don't know if that actually New Hampshire over Holy Cross is such an easy call, just because it's like, it gives me Colgate vibes, man. It gives me vibes of just like, they're the 8th seed. They're in round 2. They're playing like the one of the top tier CAA squads, but they're
Yeah,
not.
but
like
Ricky Santos isn't going to go say he's leaving on Wednesday
Yeah.
and then screw up the whole team. So I don't think that's going to be a factor
There's
this time around.
no mental psyche with Mike Houston or anything.
No, don't bring this 2018 bull crap up.
No, 2018 was a good time. Let's bring it up.
Yeah,
the good old days.
That was a
The
pretty
good old days.
Screw you both. We just won the Sun Belt.
No, you didn't.
Yes,
Check
we
the
damn
record
well
book.
did.
Check the record book, bud.
I'm just going to
Okay,
check
about the record book.
Wikipedia, and whatever Jamie has edited Wikipedia to within the next 5 minutes, I'm just going to roll with it. Yeah, I honestly think, boy, I got some faith in Southeastern Louisiana. I think that they have a really good shot of going and beating Samford. And Samford has just proven us wrong all year long. But I feel like Holy Cross is going to be playing for just everything. Like, this is the next step in championship within their season. The players aren't going to think like, oh, this is our only playoff game to win. But like, they're going to be at home defending the undefeated season. I don't know. I just don't think that's as easy of a pick from a mental psyche week of rest standpoint. So I'm going to actually take Southeastern Louisiana as the best shot for an upset because of how quick that offense can score. And I don't know if Samford's going to slow them down much. So, Jamie, what do you think? You got 3 options there, man.
Tiebreaker.
Yeah, it's definitely not Gardner Webb. I mean, I think we can all agree on that. Yeah, I hear you both. I think I also agree with you both, but just want to, since I'm wearing the shirt, I'm going to stand for Southeastern Louisiana a little bit more today. Just
Matt wins.
Hey, remember, you got to win to get your shirt worn, and then the most competitive game of the day, Southeastern wins the shirt wearing.
Now remember his game pick that's going to happen in 20 minutes, guys.
Exactly. My game picks are coming up later. But
because he's going to pick the opposite. I already know this.
We don't know.
Southeastern Louisiana, though, if you look at that, they lost to Texas A&M Commerce, which is a new FCS team. So that really put a nasty blemish on them. That was their only FCS loss.
Mm-hmm.
They beat the number 7 seed Incarnate Word, who obliterated everybody.
And they crushed Jacksonville State.
Yeah, they beat Jacksonville State, who beat everybody else except for Tulsa.
Yeah.
So this is a better Southeastern Louisiana team than you think you are looking at.
100%.
This is a team that has been flying under the radar all season long.
They're fun to watch too.
They are.
They're such a fun team to watch.
And that quarterback Cephas Johnson played amazing last night.
Amazing.
He was so good. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. Last year they went to FAMU. They played against FAMU and beat the pants off them, and then just went and got hammered by JMU. Samford ain't JMU, folks. And I'll just say that.
And we need Danny Johnson in Fargo, so that's important. And we need that color scheme in the Fargo Dome of both of those teams, Southeastern Louisiana and NDSU. Not that I'm picking those teams to win.
Samford doesn't have to wear a fake crown on their dog to win. They just.
Oh, man. If you're watching on YouTube, Jamie has sent his
nonverbal
cue.
I'm redeeming myself.
Nonverbal cue response.
I just had an itch. My nose itch.
Yeah.
So good. Well, Jamie's defending his home turf, which is pretty great. And speaking of home turf, Joshua Hoffman, an amazing South Dakota State fan, has asked an impressive, great question. In what game will home field advantage have the biggest advantage? All right, guys, we're down to 16 teams. We got 8 games coming up this weekend. Which game is home field vital for a team to be victorious? Jamie, when you look across the slate of these games, feel free to include Jackson State and Southern as well, even though we think Jackson State's going to murder them. What about home field? What do you think?
So when I think about this question, I think about if the game was played on the opposite field, would it change the way I think? And 2 of them really pop out, kind of, to a certain degree, Montana, North Dakota State, because I think if that game was in Missoula, North Dakota State might be in a little bit of trouble, a little bit. But to me, it's probably Montana State, Weber State. You know, playing that game in Bozeman versus playing that game in Stewart Stadium, I think is a big deal. They've been there, done that once already this year. I believe the game this year was in Bozeman, if I'm thinking correctly. And it was a 6-point game with 4 safeties. So Weber State knows how to go to Bozeman and play winning football in 2 facets of the game. But Montana State has been on a rip. nobody is stopping them running the ball over the last few weeks. And just, that home field, they coming up off a game day the last time they had a game there. I think if you put that game in Stewart Stadium versus in Bozeman, I think we would think completely different about this game. But I think that's probably the one for me.
This is a tough question. I was reading this one earlier and I was looking through the games and I'm like, boy, I can say this for quite a few of the matchups for a variety of reasons. Kyler, have you keyed in on one, man? Because I've got a few options here.
So I'm kind of looking at it like Jamie is. Like I do think South Dakota State can beat Delaware anywhere. I just do think that. Incarnate Word Furman, man, that's such a good game too. That's going to be fun. I think I'm going to lean with actual either Montana State or Sacramento State. Montana State, just because out of all the playoff teams right now who have a home field advantage coming into there, it's the biggest stadium, the most fans, probably the wildest weather elements that you can think of that could happen there. I do think Montana State, out of just a pure atmosphere, is right now the best. And people can argue the Fargo Dome, but Montana State's having more fans there. I mean, it's a different environment even than it was a few years ago. And then you got to include the weather. It's a little different. But I like Sac State's right now too, because surprisingly, people make fun of Sac State all the time. They had a top 10 FCS attendance this year, right? Or pretty close to it. Maybe they were 11. I think they had about 15,000 fans and their regular average. I think it was that. You guys can correct me if I'm wrong. But Richmond's also got to travel now 3,000 miles to the best fan base that Sac State has probably ever had. Finally, under Troy Taylor's true team that he's recruited himself, right? He's been a brand new coach.
Richmond's used to playing against teams where the other team's fans dominate even in their own stadium. It's fine.
Well, they're not used to traveling 3,000 miles. Last time they did, they lost 38-0 against another West Coast team. So we'll see. But yeah, I don't know. I like the travel aspect. I like the 15,000 fans aspect. Probably the weather is going to be nice. But yeah, probably leaning towards Montana State overall.
Yeah, I think the mental psyche always comes to me. And Holy Cross, of course, is easy pickings here because most people just view them as the underdog. You need that home support. You need to feel comfortable with New Hampshire coming into town. Kyler, I love that pick of Sac State because I wanted to bounce off that to be like, Sac State has been seeded twice in the playoffs. They have 0 playoff wins. So home field advantage for them. And Richmond's not a bad team.
They're a good squad.
That's a balanced team coming in there. And it's like, you got to get the monkey off your back of Sac State. You know what I mean? Like if they lose in round 2 again, that would be 3 straight playoff appearances, not straight within the seasons. It would be, their 3 playoff appearances would all be seeded and they'd all be upset in round 2. I mean, you're getting in Jacksonville State territory at that point.
I was going to say, they'd be the new Jacksonville State.
Holy moly. So I think they really, the home field advantage there for them will be big. I feel like you'll have that moment where they'll win. There will be 3 minutes left. They'll be up 10 points. It'll pan the crowd and the place will be going nuts because they'll be like, yes, we finally did it. Now we'll see what happens next.
And if that team can get a win, like it's one of those, is the ball going to start rolling downhill if they pick one up too?
Right.
And then they become really dangerous. And between Asher O'Hara and Cameron Scatterbo, they're already dangerous.
Oh, I love you guys are just setting this up. You would think this stuff is planned because dangerous, worrisome. Mr. Brandon Owens, we just talked about. And Mr. Brandon Owens asked, out of all the second round matchups, which non-seeded team should the seeds be scared of? All right. Keeping it rolling. Well, I look across the board and I see a lot of teams I might not want to face down the line for my squad. Kyler, your Eastern Washington Eagles, unfortunately, the season's done. So you can look at this from a 20,000-foot view. No bias at all. Who is the scary team that remains beyond round 2 that is not seeded right now?
When I'm looking at just this page you have up, that right side of the page looks so much more daunting if I'm a seed, right? So it's hard to just pick one because Incarnate Word, they've been amazing all year. We just saw what Furman did to Elon. Furman just beat the shit out of them. I mean, I can't PG myself on that one. Furman beat the shit out of Elon. It wasn't competitive. You're looking at a pissed off Furman. Kind coming into Incarnate Word, who maybe has a little extra break, right? They had that little bye week, and did they play the last weekend? Were they like SDSU and had 2
I think
weeks
they
off?
played. Didn't they play Northwestern State and just
Okay, yeah.
tune
Okay,
up?
then
They
never
used
mind.
it
They
as a
didn't have
tune-up.
2 weeks off. But then you got
Might as well have.
Montana State playing Weber State, which Weber State, I think we can all agree, probably the best non-seed, at least on the field prior to Selection Sunday. They were going to be probably the either last seed in or first one out. We already talked about the SLU Samford game. Samford should be terrified. And then if I'm Sac State, we just mentioned it with Matt, you haven't won a game yet ever, right? You're getting one of the toughest matchups. Richmond is no slouch. It's not like you get to play a New Hampshire or, even a bottom CA team who just came into the field or a Gardner Webb. You're playing Richmond, who was in the last game of the year.
They're a top 30 offense. They're a top 20 defense is Richmond.
Yeah, and they had a chance to win the CA, and if they won the CA, they're probably the seed over William and Mary. So that's kind of what you're looking at. So, I mean, the left side of this bracket, outside of Holy Cross, I think all of the seeds don't really need to be that fearful. But the right side of this bracket on this page, I think every single seed should be pretty fearful. So I don't know if I could just pick one.
It is certainly intriguing. I like that Furman pick. I just think Furman is playing really, really good ball right now. I'm very biased towards them because besides the last year, I've picked them as my dark horse almost every season. If NDSU goes to the FBS, book it. It's Furman. I'm going all in with Furman. FU all the time. But man, when I look across teams that I would not want to play, and think of them going into the big ones, they're going to Brookings, they're going to North Dakota State. It's got to be that solid balance, and Richmond provides it. Southeastern Louisiana is a team that I would not want to play, but you got to pick one here. So picking the one team of the non-seeds I would not want to play, I'm going to stick with Furman. I think the defense is playing a lot better as the season came down on the stretch. The offense is very balanced. They showed their physicality last week, and I think Furman is that team that you are not going to want to see. It's going to be very interesting when they play Incarnate Word this upcoming weekend. Jamie, who's scary, man?
Well, before I get there, I hate to burst any bubbles, but Incarnate Word excels at the pass game, I imagine. Second overall in the
They're pretty
FCS.
good.
Where do you think Furman ranks in pass defense?
They're in the 50s for total defense. I know that, but
passing defense 112.
So the best.
That's just numbers,
Yeah. Then there's 3 of them in their ranking, which is not great. So while I love the way Furman's playing, don't like the matchup at all.
That's how I kind of feel with like Richmond, where I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to pick them to beat Sac State, but I feel like Richmond or Furman are the 2 teams that would scare me the most. Mostly.
Yeah. And for me, it's Weber State. They've shown they can go to Bozeman and play with Montana State. The first half yesterday, they showed that they can be a dominant team. This is a team that has playoff experience. They've been to quarterfinals. They've been to semifinals under Jay Hill. They're healthy. I think it's Weber State. Southeastern Louisiana would be another choice. As much as I'd like to be safe Furman, because I was thinking Furman, long term, but that passing defense is an albatross against a team that slings it like Incarnate Word and Lindsey Scott, and that's going to be tough. And if they can, force some turnovers and bend and not break, sure, they can absolutely pull that upset because they can run the ball and control the clock too. So you're not completely lost, but that one stat does give me a little bit of pause. But I'll go with Weber State followed by Southeast Louisiana. But I like what Kyler said. That whole right side of the screen, the seeded team should be aware of the road team.
If I have to pick one, I'm leaning on Richmond. So I'll just say that I think Montana State is just playing a little bit better than they were when Weber was playing, and Weber's maybe playing a little bit worse.
Yeah,
Montana State's fully healthy. I think it's not going to maybe be as kind of the game we all anticipated maybe 6 weeks ago. So yeah, I'm going to lean towards Richmond. I think Richmond's a solid team. That's not a fun matchup if I'm Sac State.
So you got Richmond, you got Furman. The last one I'll throw in there, and I'll make this my official pick, and it's way out of left field after everything I just said. But I will say Montana, because if Montana's at least coming to town, that's a big mental hurdle. You know what I mean? Like there's something about that where it's like, here come the Grizz. So whether they're seeded or non-seeded, you would not want to worry. You would be worried about that fan base and that team showing up in your city.
I wasn't.
Yeah, not well. We can't all be as strong as the Sun Belt East champs. You know.
Damn right.
All right, guys. Final question here in the Big Seven. Jeremiah Rash, awesome fan, awesome person. Which second round matchup are you guys most excited to watch? This one's personal. Which one are you pumped to see? And what do you think there, Kyler? Which one are you jacked to watch this weekend?
Oh man, I want to see North Dakota State, Montana. Right, 2 perennial blue bloods, 2 really annoying fan bases. That's kind of what I want to see, the Twitter back and forth, and I'm just gonna keep poking the bear, poking the bison in this game. Whoever's going up ahead, I'm gonna probably tag the other fan base and just be kind of a little troll on Twitter. So that's what I'm most excited to see, just because of my trolling aspect. But
will you get a bison tattoo on the other leg, or
I'll get that with you.
Perfect. We'll do it. But in terms of a game that I'm excited just to watch, I really want to see the Sac State Richmond game. I think this is going to be a really fun game between one of the best Big Sky teams, one of the best CAA teams, and we'll see which team can kind of jump over that hurdle, because Richmond hasn't been there for a while like they used to be, that dominant force, and Sac State still hasn't really gotten past anyone. So that's going to be a fun game to watch.
There are so many fun matchups. It's going to have the ESPN Plus or whatever app you can use to have multiple games up at a time, because it's
multicast, baby.
Yeah, multicast for sure. I have to stick with Furman and Incarnate Word because I feel like I know what I'm going to get out of mostly everything, and that doesn't mean it goes according to plan. But while I have a lot of faith in Furman, is Incarnate Word going to roll them from that big offense, and they're coming off the bye? They're the 7th seed. Furman 9-2, looking so good. And stylistically, just like Jamie mentioned, bad pass defense, great pass offense, control the clock, up tempo, Walter Payton Award winner, the unspoken SoCon team. I just think there's so much intrigue there. I feel like I know what I'm going to get out of mostly everything else. So I'm going to be very interested to see the Paladins versus the Cardinals there. Jamie, which one are you going to be watching, since your Dukes will be on a nice little break?
Yeah, I'm pretty interested in basically everything with those first 2 on the left. Although I had an opportunity to go to the William & Mary game, but I'm going to skip it this week. Going to take a weekend at home and just do what y'all said. I'm going to have, the TV, the laptop, the tablet, the phone, and just have games going all over the place and try to catch a little bit of everything. But if I have to focus in on one, I'm really intrigued by that Weber State Montana State rematch. I want to see if Weber State can shake off the cobwebs of the mistakes, and can they go in there and beat Montana State, or can Montana State continue to roll now with the addition of a decent back like Isaiah Fonse, a great back, should I say? Like, the rich got richer there, and he's apparently 100%. So, like, would anybody be surprised if Montana State's in Frisco? Because I sure as heck wouldn't.
Yeah, the Bobcats are trending, and which is a good thing because we all picked them to, not be so great, but we'll have to see how that plays out. It'll also be cool to see Delaware, South Dakota State. I don't think we've talked about the 1 seed at all this podcast, but like, will it look like the spring season when Delaware went there and just got shellacked, or will it actually be a little bit closer? Seeing some head nods, some shakes, but don't worry.
Depends on Nolan Henderson. Nolan got hurt.
Yeah.
And early in that game, and it impacted the game, Delaware's ability to do anything. South Dakota State was still winning that game.
Oh, for sure.
And It's probably the same thing. South Dakota State probably still going to win no matter what. But if Delaware keeps Nolan Henderson clean and healthy, they're going to put up a fight.
It'll be fun to see. What is always fun in this podcast is our fun little segments that we've created, even when they come from inspirational people like Brian Thompson. And you know what that means. It's time for a taco bet.
It's time to put your money where your mouth is. And if you're right, put some tacos in there too. This is Thompson's Taco Bets.
All right, gentlemen, taco bet. This one straight up asked by Peter Hagen. Peter Hagen was just like, I want this to be a taco bet. How many seeded teams will fall next week? Over, under. He did not give me a number. He wants it to be a taco bet. So I've decided on 3.5 seeded teams for an over-under taco bet here. It was between 2.5, 3.5, but I figured we'd bump it up a bit. Now, we have to be kind of cautious here so we don't give away our picks for the next week because that's coming up at the end of the podcast here. Over under 3.5 seeds lose on Saturday. I will say right here, I will be betting a taco. I'm taking the over, baby. I'm taking 4 seeded teams to drop. Enjoy the intrigue for my picks at the end of the podcast today. Book it. 4 teams going down.
Man, I really thought you should have done the taco bet at 2.5. It would have made it a little bit more interesting.
I'm doing
But
this for the
3.5, dude. You got BD energy.
This is for the viral. This is for the viral moment when it happens. So I can just, snapshot it, put it on Twitter, let it live forever.
I'm gonna go under because I think it's gonna be 2 or 3 upsets. I don't see 4 getting upset this week. I just don't. But yeah, so give me the under.
All right, Jamie, am I crazy or Kyler too safe? What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's the under. If you had gone 2.5, I might
Would have
have
made it interesting.
I might have thought about it. Without revealing my picks yet, I'm gonna go under though. Let's go under.
Matt was just so crazy. He's like, "Oh, this is such good spread," because I think there's going to be 4 to 5 upsets, but everyone else is like, "What are you talking about? You drunk hippie?"
Bias taco spread. By the way, we finalized another taco bet. If Sac State is undefeated, if so, are they the 1 seed? A double taco bet. Jamie and Matt say that they would be the 1 seed. Kyler says they wouldn't be. So Kyler, congratulations, you've won.
What's the taco standings, bud?
4 tacos. I got to update them from our live episode, so you got to give me a little second there. But there you go. We are keeping track of all these taco bets. They are rolling good, and we will be posting all the tacos throughout Frisco. All right, guys. Taco bet is good. Let's get into the rest of our fan questions with some quick hits.
Just because your question is answered quickly doesn't mean we don't care. These are the quick hit questions of the week.
All right, guys. So here we go. Zachary Carlton, you're going to get all these questions in now, my man. Great question here as he wants to know a little bit about that game that happened between Weber State and UND. He says Weber State came out hot with a 24-0 lead. However, there's been a lot of talk about how they should have been seated in place of Incarnate Word or Holy Cross, but North Dakota did storm back. Did Weber State do enough to make the case that they deserved a seed, or did those second half struggles kind of justify, it's kind of good that you were at the at-large? Kyler, what do you think about those Weber State Wildcats?
I think they are a top 8 team, but I do not think they deserved one of the top 8 seeds. And this is my only reason. It was between Holy Cross or Weber. You're looking at 8 Division I wins over 11. Both have an FBS win. Both have 1 win over a playoff caliber team. So again, if it was maybe 9 Division I wins or 10, it's going to be a little bit closer. And you could see Weber getting it because of their strength of schedule, because of who they played. But you're never going to see a 3 Division I team gap get overcome by the committee. If you don't like it, that is fine. You don't have to agree with it. But that's what it is. Weber State, unfortunately, there was 8 other teams that had a playoff-worthy resume. Weber State, you did too. But there was a big win gap, and that's about why you're sitting at home playing week 1, now have to go to MSU.
Mm-hmm. All right, Weber State on to the Montana State. Okay, guys, Jason Plotkin has a question here. He says, not playoff related, but the David Baliff deal at Commerce. Is this the most baffling head coaching carousel situation in the FCS? I got to say, I did not research this question, and I'm curious if anybody here on the panel did. Obviously, Texas A&M Commerce is one of the new FCS squads. Are we aware of this situation?
Yeah.
Okay.
It made news that he ended up leaving it. He wasn't fired from what I'm aware of. Was he fired? Because they didn't have a bad season for their transition year. It was pretty solid. So I thought it's interesting how he's no longer with the program.
Yeah.
It says on the articles that he just will not be returning. It
doesn't say whether whose decision it was. They were 5-6. They did lose their last 4, but he's like 23-13 in his time there and in a transition. It's definitely odd.
Yeah.
So I don't know if there's something behind the scenes where he wanted to move on, or difference of opinion between him and the AD about how they structure a schedule or what. But yeah, it's definitely interesting.
Timing.
Yeah.
Coming off a transition year. Give them the benefit of the doubt if it was like a forced removal. But it's weird.
He had a long run there with Rice too. So he's a long tenured coach. I guess we don't want to start any rumors or anything crazy, Jason, but definitely intriguing. And I learned a little bit because I did not research that question. All right, guys, Jim Poppin, who DM'd me and said, when are you guys going to be live tonight? I need an FCS podcast. Well, Jim, I hope you're listening to this now and enjoying it. He says, what can the NCAA and host schools do to better increase the attendance problems for these playoff games?
Horrendous.
Yeah, really, really bad playoff attendance numbers. Now, they're, horrendous, as I can't type if you're watching on YouTube.
Do you think I said horrendous?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
No,
I thought you were tweaking me.
Horrendous.
A shameless plug. If you're watching on YouTube, see how Matt can't spell words. He can't pronounce last names. Boy, this guy's a train wreck. He's drinking Mountain Dew tonight. Unreal.
And you said Jim Poopin?
Jim Poopin. Yeah, right. Met Jim in person. I never would. Jamie Williams, you tweeted at some folks about this. Why are we dealing with some attendance issues? And this happens every year.
It is. It's an every year thing, and it's because the first round's over Thanksgiving. But what can you do? You can't delay a week because then that puts the semifinals at Christmas week. And honestly, if you're going to have crap attendance, wouldn't you rather have it in round one than your semifinals?
Yeah.
And you're not going to start the season a week or two early just for the FCS. I don't see where you get around not playing on Thanksgiving weekend. And a lot of times the dorms don't open up till Sunday. Sometimes they'll open up Saturday for students that want to come back for the game. But a lot of people are still traveling with family to and from places for Thanksgiving. It's a thing. It stinks.
And Jim, sorry to cut you off, Jamie.
No, it's fine.
I got to say, besides the Thanksgiving weekend, you could say that the NCAA and the ESPNs and the TV owners do actually try to help the look of the FCS in a way, because we don't know like what time slots teams get, and NDSU, because it looks really good on TV, like a filled up Fargo Dome, the camera views, even if they're not sold out, looks really good. That's why NDSU gets that 11 a.m. game in the quarterfinals. They call it Breakfast with the Bison because that's on ESPN2. And the semifinal games, it's why NDSU would always get that Friday night game, because they know NDSU is going to be sold out and it will look really good. So that doesn't help attendance per se, but they definitely do things to make the product look good in the later rounds. There's just nothing you're going to do about Thanksgiving. So this one, guys, from Jim Poppin and Nicholas Deal, it's kind of a combo question. Do you see the selection committee leaning towards seeding all 24 teams to reduce the appearance of, if you bid enough, you will be in the playoffs and host a game? What has to happen from a business perspective to end regionalization and seed the top 16, if not the whole tournament? Unfortunately, it's never going to happen. Yeah. Guys, we are a blip on the radar, and this is why you got to follow Sam Herders, listen to our podcast, and do all those things. There's contracts involved just to get the FCS on TV in some form or fashion, but ESPN and these other folks, they don't care about it. The NCAA has shown their hands. They don't care about the FCS. They only do this as a check in the box. So they're never going to seed the tournament. They're going to make it as weird and regional as possible. Am I being too negative here, Kyler, or what?
Here is two ways that we can do seeding. One, of course, just find better advertisements, like actually have better endorsements, whatever you want. That's going to be tougher because of what Matt just said. Most people don't care about it. Here is the best way. Everyone who doesn't make the playoffs, send in $25,000. Makes you not want to lose, maybe make you invest more. But if you send the other 120 teams or 110 teams of the FCS $20,000, $25,000 the NCAA, guess what? They're not worried about who's bidding. It will go right to the travel costs. You seed 1 through 24. So that's what we need to do. All of you bum programs like mine this year, just send the NCAA $25,000, and then every single year we can have a seeding 1 through 24.
I like that. That's actually a legitimate idea. So
losers pay. Suck.
Well, everybody pays beginning of the year. If you got to pay to play, baby. Cheap money don't make money.
Yeah, everybody else gets their travel paid for, so you're
$10,000. Yep. That pays for a lot.
100%. Jamie, question here for you, man, from Garrett Meyer. Garrett, thanks for DMing me your playoff bracket. I got it in, so you are on the competition. Is stats voting completed prior to playoffs, or should it be to reduce influence of playoff performance? Here you go, man. Jamie, you are a stats voter. How does that work for voting for award winners and for all those things?
Yep, the award ballots are in general due before the playoffs start. This year they were due today, being Sunday. Due by today, all the votes were in as of this morning, from what I understood. So this year, could there have been some impact? Maybe. If a voter had to wait till this weekend to make a final decision, then I don't know what to tell them. I had mine in by Friday. Speaking of, you want to break some news, guys?
I think we deserve some news, some night driving background music. You know, just what do we have here, Jamie Williams? Do we have some news or what?
All right, right here on the Big Boy Show, I am going to reveal my top 5 ballot for each of the 4 Legacy Awards.
Woo! Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Jamie Williams, official stats voter.
Everybody listening, watching, Kyler and Matt have not seen these, so they'll be live reacting just the same along with me.
See them.
No, you haven't. Don't worry. You didn't see them. So we're going to start with the big one, the Walter Payton Award. I don't think there's any question or any guessing as to who is number 1 there. It's Lindsey Scott. It is not even close.
Hunter Lipke?
Yeah, sorry everybody who thought it was going to be Hunter Lipke. It's Lindsey Scott Jr. All season. I mean, there's been 2 games where he had 7 touchdowns at the half. Number 2, and I don't think number 2 is that hard to guess either, and it is Tim DeMore of Fordham. Number 3, I went with Jaden Sheridan of Monmouth, running back, who did lead FCS in rushing yards. And number 4, Geno Hess. We saw him the other night for Southeast Missouri. Really awesome closing statement, which really put him from like 6 or 7 into the top 5. Put him at 4 with a 300-yard game in his last game, securing a playoff spot. And at number 5, I did go with Parker McKinney of Eastern Kentucky. Considered a few other players there. Michael Ayers of Samford was one of them. Jake Chisholm, Johnso Gilliam. Couldn't find a spot for a receiver on the Walter Payton Award this year. They had a couple of good ones on Andre Iasivas from Princeton and Fostis Kokosiulis. I just wanted to try to say a couple of difficult names, but both of those guys, along with Xavier Gibson, had great years, but finished just outside. On to the Buck Buchanan, which is our Defensive Player of the Year. My number 1 is Zeke Vandenberg, the linebacker from Illinois State. Redbirds had a nice season. Zeke had a huge year. He's the guy for me this year. Number 2, I had John Pius at William & Mary. Had a ton of sacks, got a lot of tackles for losses, had a lot of tackles. Just had a really strong season. At number 3, I have David Walker of Central Arkansas. Speaking of, he had 22 tackles for loss and 12 sacks. Very strong season. And I finished with a couple of defensive backs. I've got, if I can find him here, Marcus Hillman, number 4 of Elon, had 73 tackles. And from the defensive back, 16.5 tackles for loss and 8.5 sacks, with 3 pass breakups, 4 QB hits, a couple fumble recoveries, bunch of forced fumbles. So he was number 4. Could have even put him a little higher. And then Elijah Huzzy of ETSU was number 5 on my ballot with 6 interceptions and 16 pass breakups. Solid stats there. Now, on to the Jerry Rice Award, which is the Freshman of the Year. Was not influenced at all by Saturday. My vote was in, and it's kind of been the guy that's been on the top of my list most of the year. Is Giovanni McCoy, who I think is going to get a lot of votes. And the guy that I have at number 2 is probably going to get a lot of votes too, is Reese Poffenbarger, quarterback from Albany, who kind of quietly had a really awesome season, similar to that of Jeff Undercuffler a couple years ago when he was a candidate for this award, but got beat by some guy named Trey Lance, who had an amazing season. So those are my top 2, and it was very close. Poffenbarger's numbers might have been a little bit better, but McCoy taking Idaho to the playoffs, to me, that was just enough to put him at 1. At number 3, I went with a defensive back, Rex Connors of UC Davis had 92 tackles as a defensive back and 5 interceptions. So very strong season from that young man. At number 4, I've got Desmond Reed, who's a running back from Western Carolina. I think he even missed a game or two, still had 826 yards. Yes, I'm looking at some stats over here to the left. 4 touchdowns, but he also had 21 catches for 212 and a touchdown. His yards per carry just under 7. Very, very solid season. And then I went to a linebacker at my 5th slot, Connor, I'm not sure how to say his name, out of Southern Utah. 72 tackles, 10 tackles for losses, 2.5 sacks. Kid all over the field. I think he's going to be one of those 350 tackle guys for his career as he gets stronger and more lean and faster and plays all across the field. So that's the Jerry Rice. On to the coach of the year. I don't want to say there's an asterisk here because it would take away from the coaches that are listed here, who are all very, very, very deserving. But Jason X not on the list. And to me, that was a big, big miss because I had him number 1 in my mind for most of the year. He's not on the list, so couldn't go there. So these are the 5 coaches, and again, all very deserving. Any of these guys can win. Number 1 for me, I've got Chris Hatcher of Samford. I personally disregarded them most of the year, underestimated that team, and all they did was win every single game that they played. Number 2, G.J. Kinney of Incarnate Word. When you thought Chad Morris left and went to Washington State and Cameron Ward left and went to Washington State, everybody thought, oh, well, Incarnate Word's nothing again. Yeah, me too. Oh, they brought in Lindsey Scott. The only person that really championed that was Sam Herder, and Sam was right. And that G.J. Kinney got that team rolling up to a 7 seed. Phenomenal job. At number 3, Mike London of William & Mary. What more can I say about Mike? He's a phenomenal coach. He's a national championship winning coach at Richmond in 2008. He's been building that William & Mary program steadily for the last 3 years, and you could just see the build. They weren't very good when he first got there, and you see he brought in some freshman quarterback, got some transfers, got a very diverse offense, and put him at number 3. Number 4, got Coach Stig, South Dakota State, the loving grandfather. Just love watching that guy. Just looks like everybody's grandpa when he sits up there and just chats and talks. Phenomenal. Got his team unbeaten in the FCS and came within, a couple of plays of beating Iowa. Number 1 seed, what can you say? And then at number 5, the guy I voted number 1 the first year I was a voter, Troy Taylor. I've got him at number 5. Scariest. All he does is win. The Big Sky in the regular season. That's
excluding postseason.
Yeah. This is on
the stuff I vote for, all he does is win those games.
All he does is win up until
win.
December.
Yeah, and so he's and that's going to be the stigma until he does. But that to me gets the number 5 vote for me. So yeah, there were a lot of coaches that were very deserving, and I hate to have to leave people out, but you do. You can only pick 5, and those are my 5, and I hate that Jason X. So I know I just took up a little bit longer than we like on a quick hit, but why not break some news on our own show? So there you go, guys. Those are my picks for all of the Legacy Awards. Finalists for the Walter Payton will be announced next Monday. Buck Buchanan on Tuesday. All full results, including the winner of the Rice, will be Wednesday of next week. And then the Coach of the Year, Reddy Robinson Award, on Thursday. A winner plus and with all the voting. So look for that next week. So the week following round 2. So the 5th through the 7th or 8th, they'll be coming out. So look for that. And again, you'll see how my vote stacked up to what actually happens.
Very transparent, very open, always ready to discuss his reasoning. Jamie Williams, one of the best top 25 voters out there. We always appreciate the work you put in, Jamie, and then Craig and the rest of the voters. It makes it for a fun season. People say polls are worthless. Well, what else are you going to talk about? So, and this gives a bunch of young men and good coaches opportunities to really be recognized. So well done. We respect the hell out of you, and we appreciate you taking time amongst that to be here on this podcast. So, Jamie, we do have 3 final quick hit questions following that bonus segment. And I'm going to roll right into this one for you then. This question was from Zachary Carlton again. Despite throwing his 56 touchdown pass yesterday, did Tim Durant play himself out of a chance at the Walter Payton Award with a costly turnover in yesterday's loss to New Hampshire? You kind of just spoke on when things are in and what your mentality was, but does that matter at all, that round one?
I hope it didn't. I really hope it didn't. I hope he stayed wherever people had him because it's a regular season award. I hope people thought of it that way and didn't wait till this morning just to see what he did yesterday and make him one or two based off of whether or not he beat New Hampshire. If you're that late in your voting, then you didn't do enough research and figure out who should have won the award as the regular season. So I hope not.
The voice of reason, the voice of logic, Mr. Jamie Williams. Speaking of voice of reason that we love, Mr. Danny Johnson, Southeastern Louisiana, the #1 Lion fan, wants to know what the most exciting play of the first round was. Has any player really jumped out at y'all and showed his talent that you haven't heard of? I had heard of McCoy, but that dude is good, and he's only a freshman. Danny Johnson always throwing out good compliments. Danny, I'm going to show it on the screen here, and this is it. This is the play. This is the play where absolute destruction happened. Furman Elon, it's the fake field goal, and just an absolute blast of a tackle. In my opinion, that is the play of the week. Because anytime you have some intriguing defensive special teams blow up, oh, it's beautiful. Beautiful. If you guys haven't seen it, it's showing right now on YouTube. I'll take the copyright hit because 81, he's back home icing up after that one. That is exactly how it's supposed to be done.
How about the way #1 read that play, though?
Oh, beautiful.
I mean, he read the play.
Just dissected from the beginning. So
I got to go with Malik Flowers' return for Montana. Because first he bobbled the football. He had a wrap around look at where he was on the ground. He picked up the ball, ran 80 yards. He tied the FCS record for most career returns, and also it shifted the whole game momentum. They were down 24-3 at that point. Mm-hmm. That completely changed everything. That was the most important play of this weekend, and it was a fantastic athletic run, especially after you bobble it, and it almost looks like it was going to be worse for you. So that's my pick, but.
Well,
that one's a sweet tackle. So
yeah. For me, it was the Zy Alexander pick six for Southeastern Louisiana.
Huge,
big time play.
Huge play. Speaking of big time, there's nothing bigger than our final question before our predictions. Tim Rask wants to know what has to be on the table at your Thanksgiving feast. Okay, gentlemen, what is your go-to? We will answer any question from our fans for Thanksgiving. Jamie, what has to be on that table? Top 2 foods, man.
Well, I got to have a smoked turkey, so I'll handle that. And then, for me, there's probably some mashed potatoes.
Your stomach?
A bunch of other stuff, yeah.
That's the best tweet I saw on Thanksgiving. It said, your stomach thinks all potatoes are mashed potatoes. I was like, that's a solid dad joke. I didn't eat stuffing until I was like 28 years old because I just thought it was gross. I'm not
surprised.
And then I tried stuffing and I was like, this is not gross. So now, the last 5 years of my life, when I stopped being picky at the age of 28, I got to go with stuffing. I absolutely love it. Throw gravy on there. And then gravy's actually kind of my second pick there. Put gravy on the turkey, put it on the potatoes, put it on the stuffing. So gravy, stuffing, and hopefully that fast metabolism keeps working. So Kyler, what do you got?
Yeah, my wife makes an Italian stuffing. She makes it all from scratch, breadcrumbs and everything, but she uses pancetta, another weird Italian meat, spicy sausage, mushrooms, and then of course like cornbread. And it's the best thing in the world. It makes every other stuffing taste like shit.
So along with those Oreo cupcakes, is she going to send some of that stuffing to Frisco?
Or just come on down here after Frisco. Come on down to Houston. We'll have a good time. But then also just a bottle of Jameson.
There you
gotta always have that in the holidays. Jameson ginger ale. It is life of champions. So
Mountain Dew and mango habanero whiskey was my drink of choice.
Yeah, I gotta try that. Bring some of that to Frisco.
If I can find a way to get it packed properly, I'll bring some. Maybe I can find some shooter bottles.
I had I was totally tossed and destroyed on Thanksgiving from Martinelli's sparkling cider. Just really put me under. Kind of spendy. It's like $1.75 a bottle at Walmart. So, really
big one.
pop the champagne there.
Always be you, Matt. Always be you.
Never change. And one thing that's not going to change, guys, is our predictions on this podcast. But sometimes the intro for those prediction changes, especially around playoff season. We haven't seen this sucker in 365 days, but here you go.
Are these predictions because we're smart, because we're dumb, or because we're biased? It may be a combination of all three. Welcome to the playoff prediction segment.
Oh, I forgot I even made that thing. That was from the spring season. Sam Houston celebrating their national title. So real throwback there, guys. For the sake of time, we are going to predict every single game. I'll give one person a game to really dissect and give their score. And then the other two, we'll quickly just say who we think we're going to win. We're going to start with the SWAC title game, guys. Southern is going to Jackson State. Jamie, what do you think? Is this one going to be closer than the last round?
Well, last time it was 35-0, Jackson State, and it'd probably be a little bit closer, maybe 31-7, but still Jackson State. I don't see any way Southern wins this game.
I'm going to take Jackson State as well. Mr. Neal?
Yeah, Jackson State big.
Alrighty, Delaware traveling to South Dakota State. Kyler, you seem to have some facial reactions to this one. What do you think? How are the Blue Hens going to fare going to South Dakota State here?
Well, the only thing that's going to be more blue than them is the Jackrabbits because they are going to put a shellacking on Delaware.
Ooh, going to be a butt kicking. You got a score prediction for us, man?
A lot to a little. 38-17.
Yeah, I could see it be a little closer than people maybe think, but South Dakota State's going to win the game. I'll take the Jacks. Jamie?
Yeah, I think this game is close for 2.5 quarters, and then South Dakota State kind of imposes the will, like a 28-13 type of win.
Here you go. All right, guys. Well, I said 4 seeds are going down, and 1 I just picked to not lose, so there's only 7 left. So here we go. And it starts right here. I'm sorry, Sac State. Ye of little faith. I have little faith. I think Richmond's very balanced. I love their transfer quarterback, their weapons at wideout. I think Richmond's going to come in, and I think they're going to ruin the party for the Hornets. So I'm going to take Richmond with the upset. Closer game than I thought I would want to pick. I'm going to take 28-24, Richmond with the victory. Mr. Neal?
Yeah, we already saw what Richmond did with William and Mary, who runs a very similar offense to Sac State. William and Mary just ran him down, burned him out at the very end. I think it's going to be about the same. Give me Sac State.
Sac State. Mr. Williams.
Absolutely, exactly what I was going to say is the way William and Mary ground them down is exactly what Asher O'Hara and Cam Scottobo are going to do. Close game, but Sac State by a score.
All righty. Mr. Williams, you're wearing Southeastern Louisiana colors, but they look like the Bison. They're up next here, Montana at number 3 NDSU. What do you think about this game?
Montana's kind of shown some leakiness in the last couple games in their run defense, which is not a good thing when you're going up against North Dakota State in the playoffs in the Dome. Whether or not Hunter plays or not, it doesn't matter. I don't know if he is or not. You can maybe tell me here in a little bit. But between the other guys they got, I'm not worried about the guys that transferred out for NDSU. The game's in the Dome, and I'm certainly not picking against NDSU in the playoffs. So Bison 31-17.
I like everything you said, Jamie, and I will agree, bias or unbiased. I'll take the herd. What do you got, Kyler?
Yep, NDSU 24, Montana 10.
Alrighty, should be a fun game. Mr. Neal, out to the Big Sky, man. This is it. Weber State going to Montana State. Close game last time. What do we got?
Yeah, the game last time happened was crazy because Weber literally lost because of 4 safeties thrown over their quarterback's head. If you asked me 6 weeks ago, I said Weber, if they played again, I would definitely pick Weber. Montana State is finally healthy. They haven't used Afonso all year. He's finally back. The rushing team is better than it's ever been. I just don't see how Weber State wins this game. I think Montana State wins. Let's go 38, Weber State 27.
I'm actually with you. I think this is one of the uglier games of the weekend. I got a feeling Montana State's just going to take it to them. I'll take the Bobcats. Jamie?
Yeah, 3 for 3. I think Weber State's playing really good football, but just the way Montana State has been running the ball all year, but most definitely over the last 3 or 4 weeks. Plus,
Scary.
just add in the best running back from last year, fresh, 100%. Yeah, Montana State fairly easily, which stinks because I would love Weaver to win and William & Mary to win so I could go to a game next weekend, but ain't going to happen.
There you go. Montana State with the clean sweep. This one, I don't think will go around the table. I think all of us believe that William & Mary will win over Gardner Webb. Kyler looks... oh, no. Just a little fake out there. Gardner Webb, we love you. Running Bulldogs, great season. Congrats on the Big South title. You're our background tonight. However, we think you're going down to number 5 William & Mary, probably by at least 14 to 20 points. So moving into here we go, Southeastern Louisiana at number 6 Samford. Jamie, you're wearing the shirt, so I got to start with you for the breakdown, man. What do you got?
Yeah, I picked
Remember the conversation from earlier.
I picked against Samford all freaking year.
All year.
And they have made me wrong all freaking year. I'm going to do it again. I'm going to do it again. Here's one of my upsets. I'm concerned about the health of Michael Harris, quarterback for Samford. And if Cephas Johnson can back up what he did last week and the way Southeastern is playing, they play a little bit more balance on offense. Yeah, I think they win a shootout, 44-41. I'm going to go with the Lions.
Oh, boy. I'm with you. This is my second of my 4. I think Southeastern Louisiana. You guys can do the math on the final 2 predictions. I think Southeastern Louisiana is going to go in and beat Samford. I think they get a little more balance, and I don't think the week off is going to be some sort of big advantage. I think Southeastern Louisiana, it's a big win over them over Idaho, so I'll take the Lions. Kyler?
I'm going to go with the Bulldog that doesn't need a fake crown to prove he's king in this game. I just think Samford's really good this year. Like Jamie said, we've doubted him all year. I just can't doubt him again. And I think SLU is on a great run this year, better than they should have been. I don't see how they're getting it done again 2 weeks in a row. So give me Samford Bulldogs, the real Bulldogs.
But we're picking Furman versus Incarnate Word next, and we know Matt's picking Furman, and I don't know what happened to his feed. So I'll kick it over to you first, Kyler, to go ahead and pick this one, Furman and Incarnate Word. What do you think? You've seen Incarnate Word in person this year.
Yeah, it's so impressive what Lindsey Scott is able to do this year, and seeing him live when he was banged up was just a phenomenal experience. Jamie, I was kind of leaning towards this maybe a 50-50 game until you started bringing out actual facts and statistics. Now I was probably already going to lean towards Incarnate Word, but I was nervous about it. Now I'm not as nervous. So yeah, give me Lindsey Scott and company beating Furman, but the way Furman played last week, man, it should put a terror in some teams.
Yeah, I think Furman's just playing really good football right now, and I'd love to pick them, but I'm not, just strictly because of the matchup. Lindsey Scott will pick that secondary apart. Unless Furman can really control the ball and limit Lindsey Scott's opportunities with the football, and it might still not matter because they can score in minutes, in seconds even. So I'm going to take Incarnate Word in a solid 30-24 type game.
All right, for the last seed, we are looking at New Hampshire traveling to the Patriot League champ Holy Cross, the undefeated FBS win over Fordham as well. So yeah, Jamie, you're a CAA guy. You have also lost to Patriot League teams in the past. What happens with this? What happens with this game? Does New Hampshire even have a shot here?
I think they do. And the way they played against Fordham, I think they can go down there and win this game. New Hampshire's been that team in the CAA that you just didn't think was good enough because they didn't play the top teams, and when they played one, they lost until they beat. They did beat Elon. They beat Rhode Island. I think Max Brosmer's growing up right in front of my eyes, and Dylan Lobby, I mean, however you say it's a good running back. Yeah. And he's a good pass catching running back. So I'm going to take New Hampshire by 10 points here. Looks like Matt might be back, so he can pick New Hampshire.
Or New Hampshire, if you can hear me, and Furman as well. So I'll take New Hampshire to win and Furman. Sorry, North Dakota Internet got the best of me for a second.
Yeah, I'm going to lean with New Hampshire as well. We saw what they did to Fordham. Now, that was actually a pretty good game. I thought it was going to be 45-42. It ended up being 52-42, so I was close, and I got Fordham scored perfect. It's going to be a more defensive battle than this last week, but yeah, I'm going to lean towards New Hampshire beating Holy Cross.
We will see how the predictions play out. Hopefully better than my internet at the end of this podcast, but I'm glad I'm here at the ending. Kyler, Jamie, we are ready to roll into the Sweet 16 to take us down to the quarterfinals. It feels like yesterday we were kicking this sucker off, but holy moly, we only have 3 more episodes after this, which rolls us right into Frisco. So very exciting times. Well, we hope you guys enjoyed your time with your family, your friends. We hope you continue to enjoy time listening to the FCS Fans Nation podcast. Make sure you subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, and of course, follow our Facebook, Twitter pages, and make sure you follow us on YouTube.
And there goes the North Dakota internet. But with that, as Matt freezes again because it's frozen in freaking North Dakota, just like always, he waved from behind. Kyler, we'll see you in a couple of months, buddy. Month and a half.
Yeah, it's going to be
Close.
fun.
Looking forward to it. Other than that, like Matt said, subscribe, follow, hit us up. Other than that, boom.
Thank you for listening to the FCS Fans Nation podcast. Make sure to like and subscribe to this podcast on your preferred listening platform, whether it's Apple, Spotify, Google, or even YouTube. And make sure to follow our FCS Fans Nation social media pages on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thank you for listening to the premier podcast for FCS football. Boom.
People are saying that, then they're stupid.
No, not one person saying that. Not one person saying
Okay,
that.
I haven't seen anything, but it wouldn't put me past some of these fan bases.